Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Eating and Meeting. Tracy here, the host of this podcast, coming to you for the third day live at IMEX. I have roped in officially some planners from the show floor, as well as two that are in their home offices today to talk about how we, where's my little banner, create deliciously inclusive events and how planners are catering to all the dietary needs. And ironically or positively or whatever you want to call it, every one of us has a dietary need. So not only are we trying to plan for ourselves, we're trying to plan for our attendees. And everybody's got their different scenarios to talk about. So to my left here, I guess to your right, is Magdalena Bonnelly. Yes, Bonnelly. And then to her left is Jocelyn White. And then we also have Jessica Hiemenz-Woodbury and then Amy-Marie Lemanski. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much. I'm the only brunette in this group. Wow. Well, you're naturally a brunette. Okay. All right. So let's start out. Everybody tell Amy-Marie, let's start with you. Let everybody know what you do and where you are.
So I am in Plymouth, Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis, and I have been in the meeting planning, food and beverage area pretty much my entire career. So I'm going to say 30 plus years, not to age myself. But I do a variety of different kinds of events, and food and beverage is really kind of the niche that most of my friends and colleagues know me to be the guru in. They'll usually come and talk to me and ask me questions.
Okay, awesome. And then Jessica?
So I am based in Boston, Massachusetts, and I have been in the events industry for 20 years. And I'm also a mom of 3 boys, of which 2 have food allergies, which give me more passion for this issue.
Oh, complete passion. Okay. Magdalena?
I'm Magdalena Bonnelly, and I am located in Dallas, Texas, although right now I'm in Las Vegas at IMEX show. And I have been in the events and meetings industry for over 23 years now. I started back in Poland in the 90s, and I'm going to age myself right now. And then in the United States, I progressed through the ranks from catering manager, convention services manager, to now owning my own company called Procurement Strategy Group. And I'm super excited to be here. I am vegan, so this is a topic very close and dear to my heart.
Awesome. Jocelyn?
I'm Jocelyn White. I've been in the events industry for 15 plus years. I now work for an international medical association planning the annual conference. But before that, I was a freelancer, program manager, trip director, often in charge of food and beverage on site. And I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, awesome. And I roped her into that like 15 minutes ago. So, okay, so the first question I want to ask everybody is, what is your biggest challenge with planning meetings for your attendees that have dietary restrictions? And give an example of how many people you're trying to feed with different dietary restrictions, the size of your group and the percentage of attendees. And anybody can jump in. Who wants to start?
So I've planned events for, I'd say, up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. And the percentage is increasing, I think, because people are sharing more as opposed to just going and attending and thinking I can pick off the buffet, whatever I think I can eat.
Right.
I'm definitely one of those people who just thinks it's easier to do that. But I've now started to share my allergies and have carried an EpiPen since I was maybe 7 years old. So I fully understand. So I'd say maybe 30, 40% now say they have a dietary restriction.
That's huge. That's a lot. Yeah, because one chef said yesterday 10%. And I'm like, no,
it's way more.
Yeah. And what are you seeing? What kind of requests are you seeing?
You have your standard no beef, vegetarian, increase in vegan. My event is medical and very health conscious. So there are a lot of people who choose to be vegetarian, vegan, or really mindful. But there are the unique ones like myself. I am allergic to brie cheese and wild mushrooms, and no one can wrap their head around that. So
okay, how did you find out brie cheese specifically?
I ate it a couple times and then figured out that's what it was. That was new that I had eaten.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. All right. Amy-Marie, what about you?
I have seen a lot more that have come in, like when you ask it on registration forms and some of the answers that people come back with. But a lot of gluten-free, a lot of dairy-free, a lot more that are vegan. It used to just always be vegetarian. And so those are like the main ones that I've seen. And every now and then you'll kind of get a one-off allergy to onions, or like Jocelyn said, like particular foods like brie or cheese or tree nuts or something along those lines.
Okay. Awesome. Jessica, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, same. I have a conference for 900 next week in Chicago, and I think I have 160 dietary that come in, of which majority are vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free. But we also have, kosher, other religious things, health conscious, diabetic as well. But as far as the challenge goes, I wouldn't say the challenge is from the attendees. The challenge for me is the catering services managers in the hotels and and how well they're trained, and the chefs. And so it's the supplier side, training them and working with them on how to create menus that work for our teams.
Okay. What about you?
For me, I went through food allergy testing a few years ago, and I found out that I'm allergic to walnuts. Those are really bad for my body. I still don't know how. Maybe it's my chronic sinus pain or whatever. Maybe that's the allergy manifesting itself. And for me, when I manage registration forms for my clients, actually look for dietary restrictions and the answers that the attendees are providing, I am seeing increased number of different requirements. And I am super excited to say that my clients do pay attention to those and do communicate very efficiently and in a timely manner with hotels. And I would agree with Jessica that the biggest challenge is execution while you are on site. Like, for example, yesterday, the reception that I was attending, I will leave out the venue. The salad was already mixed with the dressing, with the walnuts, with all the condiments, cheese probably. So that was a no for me. And there was a creamy polenta. My question to the server was, okay, is there cream in it? Is there any dairy? Because I do not do dairy at all. And he didn't answer me. So those are the challenges that I find in today's meetings and events.
So yesterday I interviewed the vice president of catering and convention services and catering for MGM International. And I mean, she showed me a list of dietary needs. She got a group of a couple thousand, and a couple hundred of them have dietary restrictions. How are you giving, and that was a report given from a meeting planner, and to me it was actually quite well organized, but how are you giving the information to those CSMs to then communicate it? Because I think this is one of the biggest things that we all have to fix to work together. But going back to Jessica, your comment is like what they're trained on and what they're not. I mean, she listened to my episode with an allergist and learned the top 9 allergens. She's like, oh, our CSMs need to know this, right? So what kind of reporting are you providing them, and so that we can all like figure out how we work together better? And are you getting requests from the CSMs on a way to provide it, or are you giving them an Excel spreadsheet with people's names, things like that?
What I will jump in. What I usually do, I summarize with exact number for each dietary restriction. For privacy matters, I do not give out names at that stage. I just give the number and what the dietary restriction is. I turn that into either CSM or my client. If I'm working with the client and I'm not directly involved in conversations with CSM, what I do is I then have a separate conversation with them on those. And only when I'm on site, I personally work with the CSM and the banquet manager, identifying the people who have allergy or are on the list. And my last meeting, well, not last, but this year in April, I took the banquet manager during lunch and I pointed out people who had dietary restriction and they were on the list.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else?
I usually do an Excel list, and I will sometimes have their names on it, because if they're doing assigned seating at the banquet, then it's good information for them to have. But then I will sort it by the various different categories: gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, vegetarian, allergies, whatever, so that they have the list. And I usually give them multiple copies of it in paper, and so that the banquet chef can get it, the banquet manager can get it. And then at the awards dinner, I usually have more copies with me to make sure that the banquet manager has it and that they will be able to identify which area. So that way, then they can communicate to their wait staff in advance. Oh, well, the people that are at these assigned tables, you're going to have X number of dietary requests. So then it can help them in their serving process as well.
Okay, awesome.
So I believe in giving them all the information up front so that they can hopefully execute it.
Right.
So I ask the question, I always ask the severity, if it's life-threatening, if it's lifestyle, if it's airborne, those kind of questions to the delegate. And then I do follow up after reading everyone's directly with the delegate to see if they have any other further information they want to share, or how severe is it? How much do I have to check in with the chef or keep it out of the menu entirely? Right. So that's step one. The other is, yes, I have sent it to the venue in an Excel spreadsheet, sometimes with names, again, depending, and I include the severity and if it's a lifestyle. And then during registration, when they pick up their whatever the registration packet is, depending on what it is, because we flagged them to have a conversation with them, if you would like, during the function, I can introduce you to the banquet captain so you feel comfortable with what you're ingesting or asking questions about.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Jessica, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I do a similar thing. I mean, I pull the list, I consolidate it, 50 vegetarians, 10 vegans, blah, 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 and send that over to the venue. Sometimes I do include the names. I especially include the names if it's something like a boxed lunch or something where like we have specific six of these, then I don't want other people to take them unless they actually registered in advance. So in that situation, I would have a name. But one of the things I do differently, though, is I don't just send the dietary stuff to the venue and then expect them to figure out the menus. I usually have to be responsible to study the menus and then determine, based on my knowledge and my experience, what is also vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, dietary, and then correct the venue if like, hey, I need an adjustment on that. Because if I just depend on them to figure it all out, usually they don't know. They'll be like, oh, well, they can have a gluten-free bagel for the vegans. And I'm like, no, that would mean there'd be egg in it, probably. Like that wouldn't actually work. So usually I am responsible for trying to figure out the menus and then just confirm it with the chef as much as possible or ask for assistance if needed. And then what we do, Tracy, then of course we would obviously put a dietary card within their name tag, if a plated meal. You can ask, and then I always communicate to the attendees. So I always would email ahead of time and saying, hey, just so you know, here are the meals planned for the conference. Here are your options. So each different dietary would get a specific email to me, like, here's what you could eat. If you have any questions, I'll be on site. Feel free to come to me and I can introduce you to a banquet server.
Okay. Awesome. I love that. And I think the following up, and I mentioned it yesterday, like for kosher one, right? I had 3 people on Coach Eat that requested kosher. One was Orthodox Jew, and the other 2 wanted just the things to be labeled on the buffet. They felt comfortable eating off the buffet as long as they knew whether it had shellfish or beef and dairy together. And you save money that way. But it does come down to that labeling and making sure it's accurate. And Jessica, I'm with you. I sit there and analyze all the menus myself. And it pisses me off that I can't find anything that I can serve that meets multiple needs. Yeah.
With the kosher, that one is one where I always would email the attendee and ask them, like going back about that level we mentioned earlier, because a lot are just, no shellfish, no pork. I'm okay with the vegetarian meal or whatever. A very small group actually need the certified kosher meals, which would save the organization a lot of money if you don't have to do that.
Okay, Amy-Marie, you're a former
Banquet manager, restaurant manager.
So what have you seen from when you were a banquet manager to now being an event planner? What have you seen changed in the role that you used to have, as well as in how in working with them now, but also within the industry itself?
I mean, it's like all of those
needs, I guess. Yeah.
So many menu requests and dietary needs is just, I mean, it's night and day difference. I mean, you used to never get any of that kind of information before. You'd put out the buffet, you'd serve the plated dinner, and maybe you knew that there was a handful of vegetarians and that was the end of it. You didn't have to worry about labeling food items or anything like that. That wasn't even on anybody's radar. And so the pendulum has swung, and it is definitely, people are much more health conscious about it. And I think have just become so much more aware of what they're putting into their bodies and how their bodies are reacting to it. So yeah, so it's definitely been a big shift in even the presentation style of buffets is different, and the way that they do things like on more of a small batch type of serving versus just the big, huge hot box with all the different hotel pans in it, and get the next pan of chicken, the next pan of potatoes.
All right. And so the rest of us have been in the industry for a pretty long time. We're seasoned planners. We're senior industry planners. What have you seen change?
Oh my gosh, so much.
As it relates, I mean, and I'm going to ask, how long have you been vegan?
7 years, and it's not allergy related. It is beliefs and lifestyle. And I just, with the expansion of the plant-based meat substitutes,
right?
And the landscape is completely different what it was a few years ago. My challenge here is for hotels and venues to start utilizing those in the menu, not just in the restaurant where you can get Impossible Burger or Beyond Beef Burger, but start implementing those items in banquet menus. I haven't seen yet a banquet menu that has plant-based options. So that is a big challenge that a lot of hotels are currently facing. And based on the conversations 2 days ago during the breakout with Hyatt, they mentioned development of plant-based menu. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what that menu is, because there is a lot of resources out there and things can be done. Will it cost? I don't know. There are some less expensive options and more expensive options. I can go on and on and on that because I'm just so passionate about the topic that even if you don't have a life-threatening allergy, the lifestyle and beliefs for me are important to accommodate for the attendees. And yeah, I will start babbling, so I will let somebody else answer the rest of or chime in, but it is huge for me.
Okay.
I was going to speak about the Hyatt session as well. I found it very interesting because it answers not just dietary question. It was talking about staffing. It was talking about cost of food. And so they were saying that now they're developing daily the menu of the day that will always include base protein, that they're doing deconstructed salads for dietary, and trying to really meet, I guess, those top 9 allergens. Right? So I think attendees are learning that it's not only good for us or our delegates, it's also good for revenue and service, really.
Yeah.
Really. So,
Jessica, do you have anything to say?
Yeah. So I'm vegan too, 23 years. And so the industry has changed a lot. It used to be you only had one choice of soy milk, one choice of crappy frozen pizza, and now there's a plethora of stuff. The one thing I would caution about, though, is as we move towards pushing plant-based or anything else, it goes back to the food allergy thing. And this is especially concerning for me as a son with food allergies such as like pea protein, is that we just have to make sure that we're fully transparent. We never want to sneak in menu items and switch to a vegan entree or dessert without informing the attendees, because there could be serious allergies, soy, legumes. So as we do that, we just want to make sure. So one of the things that we're doing is I have a plated meal for 650 people next week working with the Hyatt. And the dessert that's being served to everybody is a vegan dessert because we need vegan options. I need gluten-free options. I need egg-free, all that stuff. And I have worked with the hotel to make sure that it's free up at top 9 so that it will work. And we will have menus too, labeling it. So just in case somebody does.
Well, I want to see a picture of it.
Yeah, it's a moose. It's done, So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I know I interviewed is it in Orlando or somewhere else? Chicago. Okay. Cause I interviewed this chef in Orlando and a couple of years ago, and he said, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
He said that two women came for a conference and they were vegan and they had to leave the hotel to go get food for all 3 meals. And they were like, oh my gosh, we're losing revenue. And so I talked to the pastry chef and he's like, I am having so much fun learning how to do this. And so I really was inspired by that because he's like, I get to learn how different things work, and baking is so scientific. Mm-hmm. So they got to play with it. But so I'm glad that Hyatt's going that route. So that's a good thing. What, Amy-Marie, and well, actually, before I get to this question, let's go ahead and do it. Labeling. 99% of the labeling is done by the banquet staff. And I've said this multiple times before, is that I've had a banquet server tell me, well, I don't cook. How do I know what's in the food? Right. Yeah. And then I've had chefs tell me, well, I'm only responsible for making the food. I'm not responsible for labeling it. So have you found success in any way in getting that labeling done? What are you doing to make sure that the labeling is correct? Or what's the struggle?
One of the things I've noticed too is that in some of the menus, some of the hotels actually will label their menu items.
If you have one of those menus, send them to me because I haven't seen any. Yeah.
I want to say they do it at the Hyatt Minneapolis.
Okay.
And because I did a big women's all-day conference there, and chicken salad entree is the thing. And I wanted to make sure that we could choose one item that was, I did the tasting with the committee people, and they were all over the board as to which one they liked. And they're like, well, Amy-Marie, which one do you like? I'm like, this one, because it is gluten-free, dairy-free. We can take the chicken off of it and it'll be vegetarian and vegan. And I just went down the list, and they're like, okay, you can do that one. I'm like, thank you. So that has been helpful. But yeah, and then I want to say that somebody makes the menu pieces of paper and gives it to a banquet server and says, here, put it out with the food. But you're right. I mean, I don't think there's any training to the banquet staff as to how anything is prepared,
right,
so that they can knowledgeably answer questions. And I'm one of those people that I feel like you can never over communicate information like that. And I just feel like it should be trickled all the way down the food chain.
Yep. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah. Can I just add the labeling cards are, you mentioned the word struggle, and I would say a struggle. Definitely one of the big marks is I want them. I ask for them. I require them. They are always wrong. And so as a planner, you're always first on scene. So one of the things I always have to do is get there way ahead of time when we're setting up a buffet and check the labels and have them redone over and over again, because they'll forget certain labels, or they're doing them wrong, or other things are missed. And just for the efficiency of the buffet and to make sure everybody understands the transparency, you got to have them correct. But they're never correct.
They're never correct. Yeah.
So I was going to say, I've gone as far as to ask for the labels in advance.
Me too.
To see them. But it's not that far advanced. Maybe the max I've got them is a week before. But I have asked to see the labels in advance. I also let them know, I expect the staff coming out of the kitchen with a past item to know what's on their plate. And I will go around and ask. And if they don't know, as they're exiting the kitchen, I'll tell them, you need to go back before you can serve this.
Awesome. I like that. Yeah.
It's kind of pushy.
No, I do. Yeah. I did a post last week. I mean, I went to an event 2 weeks ago, and it was a deviled egg or whatever. And it was in Louisville. And I'm like, what's in this deviled egg? And he's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, my biggest bane of this is that the hotels have to give the staff the tools to do their job correctly, to succeed in their job, not correctly, but to succeed. And it makes them look like they don't know what they're doing. And that to me is on management. Yeah. Yeah. You have anything else to say?
On labeling, just that I have been to events where it's done very well for my vegan requirements. For example, when I planned a meeting, to Jessica's point, struggle is a very polite word to use on how venues and hotels approach labeling. It's so important, and I just can't believe for how long they have gotten away with it. To like this year having such a big conversation, so many people going on different diets or even preferences change, and for them to know what's on the plate.
Right.
Yep. The food is such a personal, intimate thing that hotels need to start understanding that relationship that each of us has with food. And if something is requested, it needs to be written out. It needs to be marked either on the buffet or on the plated in over communication, just like it was said before.
What about your CEO? Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things too that I do is not just the labeling, but I've also gone so far as to made them redo the buffet setup because it doesn't make any sense with the allergens. So I was just in New Orleans running a conference in the spring, and the way that they set up the buffet with the deconstructed salad, they put like the top allergens, like the nuts and the cheese on top, like with the layered buffet, and then the veggies, the salad on the bottom, which means cheese and nuts are going to constantly fall into like this. There's no logic to this. So like your allergens, you have to put at the bottom, put them close to this, so there's no cross-contamination. So it's also just teaching about the setup too.
Right. Well, and I've done it. I've seen it where this was in Florida that the gluten-free was on the top shelf of the buffet, which I was happy for, because if it's on the bottom, then all that gluten is going to fall on top of that. But then again, if somebody's short in stature or is in a wheelchair, they can't reach that gluten-free pastry. So it's really kind of figuring that out as well. How do you spell it out on the BEOs? Because to me, the BEOs are also the place that those servers utilize. They live and die by those BEOs, because if it's not on the BEO, but do you label every food item on the BEO?
I do. I asked them to. I label them all. And generally, depending on the event, I will include the specific dietary for that one with a name.
Yep.
So that they know already to expect that. Because if there's, like the large ones, I understand. But 1,000 people, you don't need 50 pages of BEOs of names of dietary. But you need to know, okay, we're going to have 30 vegetarians and 20 vegans and 10 people that don't eat beef or whatever that case is. But a smaller one, like a meeting of 30 people, I will spell it out for each one to let them know, Tracy is allergic to this.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Anybody else? Best practices with BEOs?
Yeah, I definitely label the allergens on the, and it's not just for the catering, it's for myself too, because if I'm having a copy of the BEOs and I got to check the labels, that's how I remember if it's dairy-free, egg-free, etc.
Good point. Yeah. Okay. Jessica, you had mentioned to me earlier, you have an opt-in approach to planning menus for various dietary requests. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So one of the things, having worked for mostly nonprofit, member-driven organizations in the past 20 years, the customer service side, making it as inclusive to everybody as much as possible. We certainly wouldn't want to leave anybody out for food. So one of the things that we, in my previous organizations, have moved towards, and how I still plan, is this opt-in approach. So having the buffet, a deconstructed salad, or whatever else we're doing, to be as accessible to everybody as much as possible. So that, like, if your soup would always be a dairy-free, vegetarian, gluten-free option, your salad, your base of your salad, always safe for your top 9. And then you can opt in if you want to add the cheese, the nuts, the meat, or whatever. I don't work towards an opt-out policy. I don't want anybody to feel left out or have to stand there waiting for a special meal or having to skirt something to the side. We just want to make 90% of the buffet can work for everybody. And then if you want to add something to it to customize it, it might not be safe for somebody else. You have that option.
Okay, awesome. There's a planner I met a couple years ago in St. Louis, and woman had communicated that, or a delegate had communicated that she was nut-free, and then and the planner had ordered a Nutella pie preset for 900 people. And 90 minutes before the meeting, the woman came in and said, it's an airborne allergy. So how do you do those I mean, you were asking, you say you ask, is it airborne? Is it touch? I mean, are people telling you that? Are they sharing that? And then you can then safely change the menu. Yeah. And not make that person go eat somewhere else.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's airborne, and it's rare that I get the airborne that much new.
Huh?
But if I did, then I would make sure our entire event is not free.
Oh, right. Okay. And are you doing that for any other allergens? Have you done that for anybody? Has anybody done anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that before in the past. If I have advanced warning, I don't know, in that situation, Tracy, right before an event, what you could do.
I know, yeah.
Because there's responsibility on the person, too, to let you know. Like, and we have the ADA question, which would help capture that info. But we have had, as was just mentioned, events where they are fully free of something. If the allergen was so severe, we've done that with nuts. I've done that with sesame as well. And I've worked towards
really hard now. Sesame.
Sesame allergies, let me tell you. But top 9 has been really hard for us, actually. But the sesame, working with the venue and coming up with alternatives. So one of the things that we did is for continental breakfasts for the years, because of these severe nut and sesame allergies and such, I could no longer serve peanut butter for my bagels for like the vegans and the dairy-free people. So we worked with getting like a pumpkin seed butter. And like that, or butter, something like that. And so the venue was able to actually source it, and they actually found a good one and they liked it. And I think they started using it for other menus to have. That's just my group. Yeah.
That's awesome. What about you?
I don't have a lot of experience with airborne, so I'm not going to speak to that particular question.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. Okay.
And I also had a lemon zest, like the smell in that. And we could no longer serve oranges. And we had to actually work with the hotel to make sure that none of the sprays were like lemon because of the allergens too. So that
my guest 2 weeks ago is allergic to orange, the oil in the orange rind. So she will not eat any cut fruit on a buffet because they probably cut the oranges and the pineapple at the same, whatever. So yeah.
I have an allergy like that.
You do?
So I don't eat any fruit.
Wow. Okay. And it's super hard and they're supposed to be changing knives, but we don't know what's happening in the back of the house. Exactly.
It's just like cooking plant-based protein on the same grill that you just cook chicken on.
Right. Exactly. And it's like when Burger King got sued by somebody, yes, because they cooked the plant-based burger on the grill.
So now the plant-based burger is put in the microwave.
Oh,
that's what they do.
Okay, that's gross. That's disgusting.
Horrible.
Yeah. Okay, so outdoor events. Amy-Marie, you do a lot of festival type events, but also when we're taking our events off property or out into the pool area, or how are we managing those differently? And Amy-Marie, are you seeing, are there food trucks or are they catered? How are we doing that? Because I think food trucks are another challenge in small kitchen, managing the dietary and having options.
Yeah, I mean, your food trucks are very limited. They're going to serve what they're going to serve. I would pepper them in to the big outdoor music festival that I would do for the Basilica Block Party, but they cannot produce food and turn it around fast enough. So there is limitations with them in that regard. But a lot of my food vendors that are just like the regular vendors, I mean, they're cooking in an outdoor space. It's very difficult to be able to follow the no cross contamination requirements, but usually they'll have one item in particular, or I will identify one vendor that is going to be able to produce something that's going to be able to accommodate the vegetarians and the vegans and some of those other allergies.
Okay, so you just...
But not every vendor is going to be able to accommodate all of those needs in that situation. So you just have to be able to pick one or two that are going to be able to accommodate.
So my biggest thing on just something that I picked out of that too is the variety of food. Like there's so many times that I get quinoa every single day for breakfast, right? I mean, I worked an Olympics game and for 21 days, they're supposed to be feeding me. They're like, on Monday, you're going to get black beans and rice. On Tuesday, you're going to get curried chickpeas. And on Wednesday, you're going to get black beans and rice. For 21 days, I'm like, do you want to see a next year I eat beans for 21 days? I'm like, no. So how do you manage the variety in some of these I don't like to say special, in these personalized plates. So they're not getting the same food every day.
So I will just speak from my personal experience because I have had such a hard time finding to not eat beans every day for my protein intake.
Right.
So I just learned about texturized vegetable protein, TVP, that is soy, but it's something where you can make meatballs with vegan meatballs. And actually Gardein bread uses those in you can buy them frozen in the frozen section at every grocery store. But it's hard because like I do not want to eat every day also Beyond Burger or Impossible Burger. So I will be, for my personal life, I have been using a lot of protein powders.
Yep.
To get the protein intake that for myself to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I don't think you would want to do that at a meeting, although serving shakes, I would enjoy it. So for me, the most challenging is the protein.
Okay. What about you, Jessica?
Yeah, so next week we have 2 plated meals, so back to back. And I have made sure that the options for the vegetarian and vegans is different each day. I don't know exactly what we're doing. We went over it on a call, but there was a great variety between the 2 meals.
Awesome. And what about you?
I think before we used to accept there will be a vegetarian option, and that's all the chef would tell you. And now I'm not willing to accept that. I generally do push to find out what is it going to be. And is it a pasta every day? It can't be.
Right.
And they've gotten more creative. I've seen more, including tofu, really, truly.
Right.
I'm of Chinese heritage, and I grew up eating tofu often and still do now. And I think people are learning to eat it more commonly. And I love tofu.
Yeah, most hotels now, mainstream, have tofu options, and they do the cauliflower steak at Hyatt's. Like we're working next week, have good varieties. In fact, the main menu I picked for our chicken plated meal on Saturday, the one that was suggested because of having the dairy-free without any modifications, it's already dairy-free, gluten-free, nut-free by default. They make it with quinoa now.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm serving as a chicken dish that actually, so it'll knock off almost every allergen that I have besides the vegetarian vegan.
Awesome. The brand that I love for pizza is Banza. It's a chickpea, and especially the plain one is a chickpea vegan pizza crust. And you can make it on your own. It's my new favorite pizza crust. And it comes 2 in a package, which is not the normal for normal packaging because it's 1 per pizza. So you're getting 2 for the price of 1. Okay. So my last question for all of you, and this is what I ask every one of my guests, is what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like to you? Who wants to start?
Smaller portions.
Smaller portions? Okay.
Definitely smaller portions and reducing waste. The buffets need to be created more consciously with not as much food. There is so much food waste these days. So for me, it's smaller portions, portion control.
Okay. All right. Joyce?
I agree as well. And then I would also add in what they're using to serve. Sometimes we're in Las Vegas here right now, and it's not their priority. There's a lot of plastic plates, little cups and spoons. Yeah. So I'm very conscious of that as well.
Reusables instead.
Yeah.
Yes, I got that.
Refillable water.
Oh my gosh, and there's not very many water stations.
That's not enough.
No. Yeah. Okay, Amy-Marie, what about you?
One of my biggest things is I do not do bottled water at events, period. It has to be like those Culligan style water bubblers, or else I will just do some other kind of infused water station. I agree portion sizes could definitely be more reasonable. Instead of give me a half a head of lettuce for lunch, I don't really need that much. And I love the transitions that I've seen in the buffets being more of that small batch type of a presentation versus the big hotel pans.
Right. Yeah. It's prettier. Ugly silver chafing dishes. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that maybe the action stations are more sustainable than the actual buffet.
Because they're making it on site. Yeah.
Right. right. And I don't know about food waste from those, but definitely portion control can be achieved with that. I need to read more about action stations and how those actually are better or worse than buffet.
Oh, okay. What about you, Jessica?
Yeah, so I don't do bottled water either. That's been banned for years. But in the post-COVID world now, I'm noticing that hotels are starting to charge for water stations, hydration stations. So that's a new expense that navigating. One of the things we could do too, I mean, everything that was mentioned is great, but on the buffets, like I said, the opt-in is that your meat and your cheese are much smaller portions, right? Like you can add a little bit of fish on top or a little bit of chicken or a little bit of steak, but that's not your main meal. Your main meal is the lettuce, the quinoa, whatever greens, veggies you have, and then you can opt in to add your protein so that we have more plant-based options to make it better for the environment.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, ladies. I know some people have got appointments to run to here on the show floor, and so I'm going to wrap it up. But I mean, this is a topic. Thank you all for what you do, because I think it's just the 5 of us making the steps to do this will help educate and help move things forward. So thank you so much for being here, and everybody for tuning in. Somebody wrote in and just said, thanks, Tracy, for doing this, Lynn Wellish. So thank you, Lynn, for tuning in and listening to us. We had no questions, unless we have one from our audience here. No questions from our audience as well. So, okay, ladies, I want to stay on the screen because I'm going to take a selfie with you, and then we're going to go. But until next time, I will be live tomorrow morning again, right in the same spot, to recap what I've seen for the last 4 days at IMEX. So thank you. And until then, stay safe and eat well.
Thank you for having us.
Go.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.